Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is independent of Santa Cruz Guitar Company, and all opinions are those of the speakers. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the 24th Santa Cruz podcast for guitar players, for the Guitar Players Forum. And today we have Scott Law. If you don't know Scott, we're going to introduce you to a really hard-working musician in the trenches. Scott's an American singer, songwriter, record producer, and multi-instrumentalist known for his work with guitar and mandolin. Based in Portland, Oregon. How long have you been there, Scott? Have you been
18 years this year.
Has been a professional musician since 1992. Scott's an authentic performer, widely known for his distinctive abilities to elevate the potency of a collaboration in lead or supporting roles on electric guitar, acoustic guitar, or mandolin. A student and devoted fan of American roots music and psychedelic rock and roll, Law's sound is strongly influenced by the stylistic tributaries, songbooks, and fearless improvisational approach of bands like the Grateful Dead, Allman Brothers, and their jazz and R&B influences. Scott's own music is sprung from his sources predicted on deep listening, lyrical melody, and implicit freedom of musical expression. I love that. Wow, that's beautiful. Besides fronting his own projects, Scott's a regular contributor with legendary Grateful Dead bassist Phil Lesh in his rotating Phil Lesh and Friends cast and other lineups. Law has contributed as a monthly artist in residence at Lish's Terrapin Crossing venue in San Rafael, a great facility, by the way. If you ever get open again and get a chance to get down there, get there and see it. Since 2014, and he also joins fellow TXR bandmate Ross James and co-leading and Psych Roots powerhouse electric band Scott Law and Ross James Cosmic Twang. His band Broke Down in Bakersfield was formed in 2011, and Banjo Killers with national banjo champion Tony Furtado. In 2013, the luthiers of the Santa Cruz Guitar Company honored Scott by introducing a special new instrument to their model line, one that Law helped design. Having become recognized for its tone, balance, and power, the D-Law signature model is a mahogany dreadnought guitar, resulting an exacting replica of the acoustic instrument Scott plays, now holding its place among other esteemed signature models produced by the company. Scott's performed and recorded and collaborated with many of the artists of mention across the spectrum of American genre, including Phil Lesh and Bob Weir, as we mentioned, the Terrapin Family, Nicky Bloom, Peter Rowan, Daryl Anger's Republic of Strings, John Schofield, the String Cheese Incident, Traveling McCoys, the Traveling McCourys, Melvin Seals, Melting Pot, Broke Down in Bakersfield, Tony Furtado. I'm tired already, Scott. Good Lord. What's up? How are you? Welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much.
Wow, that's impressive. Really, it looks like one thing's led to another.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, that's pretty much how it has worked.
How'd you get started? Why guitar?
Well, I mean, in the very, very earliest time that I can remember, I remember there used to be this commercial. I wasn't allowed to watch TV very much as a kid, only during certain times. And I grew up in Southern California in Glendale through kindergarten. Somewhere in that time, I really got it in my mind I wanted to play the guitar. And part of it was because there was a commercial, which was, what was it? It was like quick picking and fun strumming, something like that. And it would come on during the time when I was watching the TV, and I really got intrigued. Anyway, I was fast forward, family moved to New York. I was at that time was not in, I mean, there were not, my parents didn't know what to do with a kid who wanted to play guitar, whose hands were, I mean, I was a tiny little kid. They said, he's a tiny little kid. We don't have guitars for that. And that was, that was that. Until I got bigger, I couldn't. Then when a few years later, maybe I was 8, I don't know, we moved to New York and a guitar did enter the picture. I took lessons. There was this nylon string guitar that we had, which I never was into the nylon string sound. It was the steel string that I was interested in. I do remember that. But I took a few lessons, learned a few chords, the open chords, but I mean, it was like egg timer, music book. I don't know what I'm doing. How do you practice? No support. There weren't music camps. There weren't other kids around playing guitar in my world that came around. So that kind of went away. I got into drums and I was a big Beatles fan. And the thing was, I heard a lot of different music. Like my father was a audiophile, had a really incredible stereo system. And there was music going on all the time. And at night, when he would get home, that would be the unwind. So I don't know. The music fire, I think, just kind of started way early. And
so was it your dad that introduced you to this kind of wide variety of genres and styles and artists?
Yeah, totally.
That's great.
Yeah, no, like the first name of an artist that I ever put together, like in my mind, was Johnny Cash. Like, oh, that's the name of a person, like that's a singer. I totally remember that. Boy Named Sue was like my favorite tune. And I was like, and the first guitar player I really became aware of, like, oh, he's a guitar player, was Chet Atkins.
Oh, there you
and
go.
Merle Haggard. Like I heard a lot of country music, a lot of blues music, and gospel music. Bessie Smith, Mahalia Jackson.
Wow.
I
A
think
lot of Louis Armstrong, and jazz music. I mean, so it was interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I got introduced to my ear got introduced to a lot of stuff. And then the Beatles. At one point, finally, it's like he breaks out the Beatles record.
And if he's an audiophile, was it Rubber Soul or was it Revolver?
No, actually, it was Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah.
I still have I have it now, the original pressing and the original pressing of the White Album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It when you really listen to that stuff, especially if you have a good stereo. I mean, I think my first stereo was like this thing I got from working weekends as a trash guy, and found it, and it was, horrible. I mean, it just sounded horrible. But if you had an audio file for a father, you got to hear those parts and you got to hear that production. Wow.
Right. No, it's really true. And like, especially those old country records. I mean, like the Merle Haggard records and the Buck Owens. I mean, on that stuff was made for stereo, and vinyl. I mean, it was just incredible.
15 inches per second, and
really,
oh yeah, 15 IPS, and that. The Buck Owens thing, that when they were making all those records, he was living in Bakersfield, and they were driving every night after working at Capitol. They were driving home to Bakersfield over the grapevine. 3 times a week.
Right.
Get home. What the old grapevine without the 5? I mean.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's like, hey, it's always the extra mile. My Lord.
Wow. It's music.
Those guys were trailblazing. And I think Buck Owens, like, I mean, he was prowling around up here before he went down there. There's a lot of, and him and Don Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've read Buckham, right?
No.
Oh, it's great.
No, I need to read that.
Yeah. It's really great. It's it really part of that whole, you just get an idea of how far ahead of the game he was.
Oh yeah. And yeah, that whole time period, I just finished reading wait a minute. What is it called? Oh, the birth of Loud. I think it's called The Birth of Loud. And that was just like a kind of a history of the arms race. I mean, I'm totally this is my editorial. It was like the arms race between Fender and Gibson. And really though, but it's really, really cool, like how the evolution and the cultural and market significance of both, the rise of Fender and Gibson and anyway, just fascinating how it was all wound up together too. And some of the artists like Dick Dale and Jamie Bryant and the country guys, like with the whole, the Fender situation, especially. Anyway.
I'm reading Stone Alone right now, Wyman's book.
Oh,
And
cool.
It's really amazing how they had literally no gear. I mean, he was put in the band. He was asked to be in the Stones because he had an extra Vox amplifier.
Right.
He was 5 years older, 6 years older, but he had an extra Vox amplifier, so they had him in the band because of it. But like, well, yeah, all those guys saw that opportunity. The manufacturers saw the opportunity, and just heaped crap on people. I mean, certainly different today, but.
Well, it was all just exploding. It was all forming new. The whole industry. It was nothing. It was just rising out of rising out of nothing in a sense. The record industry, everything was like coming together.
Yeah.
And, what we know today was born during those times, in terms of rock and roll industry, the concert industry, musical instruments. I mean, Fender was going along just fine, but when the surf thing hit, he was a household name.
Boom.
I mean, like Fender was everywhere. It defined what electric guitar was to the average Joe.
Yeah, really, really.
And then by the mid '60s.
Yeah, so, really amazing.
Now,
anyway.
Before we go too far away, I got to ask, if you still have all that vinyl, Scott, are you a vinyl file? When you want to listen to music, do you pull out the vinyl or?
Absolutely. And, I have to say, I love streaming for the random access and the convenience, which for me as a person who likes to cue something up really quick because I want to learn that lick or I need to hear that tune again. It's awesome. But when I listen, and every day, that's one thing that's happened during pandemic. It's like, I'm prioritizing quality listening like I used to do, like where I sit down with my cup of coffee or whatever, and I put on a side or two of a record and just sit still and enjoy it and let it wash over me and think about the one thing that catches my ear. And maybe I'll go and try and find out what that is, pull up a guitar. Or maybe not, just sit there and enjoy it.
Enjoy it, yeah.
Yeah.
If we've all done that, we'd probably all be in a better space now. That's actually a pretty healthy way to deal with it.
It has really been good. And I mean, my theory, at least for me, I love it's a physical reality listening to analog. It's something you can feel the difference. So I appreciate it for that. I had this really weird thing happen during the pandemic where I sort of happenstance, met this fellow. It was through an instrument, an instrument sale situation, and we just kind of became friends. And he's going through, kind of downsizing, and he's an older guy, and he's downsizing his record collection and his music book collection. And he's been just super sweet and like laying all these records on me, and stuff that's like, I mean, amazing how few. I don't think there was maybe a half a dozen records that I already had.
Wow.
But we're talking like, 3 moving boxes full of records. Two of them, one of them I'm going through. I mean, some of them were like, pretty ratty and not priority for me. But the other two really good boxes of incredible records, chock full of guitar players. I don't have their records yet. I don't have the vinyl. George Van Epps, like all the Johnny Smith and Kenny Burrell. Like I have some of that, but it's been really nice. And Benson, like I think I have every Benson record now.
So is that a physical part of your day where you're saying from this period of time, like I know Eric walks every day, I know he walks and listens. Is that a physical part of your day where you're saying, okay, I'm going to listen to something every day?
Yeah. I mean, right now, because the schedule's been just so easy to just kind of, and carve everything out, and it's pretty much the same every day. So yeah, I mean, literally in the morning, that's what I've been doing is, working through the vinyl and having my coffee, and maybe I'm doing some other work, on my computer or whatnot. But a lot of times I'm just kind of sitting there, just staring at the wall, listening.
It takes me down about 6 questions to, so you're a kid, you're in New York, you're figuring it out, you're starting to hear some things and things like that. How'd you take it further?
Well, in 4th grade, they gave us a choice what to play, right? And I think guitar wasn't available.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I was like, violin. Okay. So some sort of spark of the fiddle early on, or drums. And they ended up putting me on drums, but I didn't have a great experience in the structured zone there. And that was in elementary school. But then again, kept being interested. And by the time I was in junior high, I wound up in the stage band playing drums. Like I just kind of kept at it. And then in high school, I had one of my best friends, was this hilarious guy who was like every side of every spectrum, funny and football player, but he was also in choir. And he was like, dude, you got to join choir. The teacher's amazing. And so I was like, yeah, right, ever. We were playing rock and roll by that point. I was still playing drums. And then some transition kind of happened in there where we sort of had a pile up of drummers and a glut of drummers and a need of guitar players in my little neighborhood band. And I was the only one sort of gutsy enough. I still had some sort of primal memory of a few chords. I could, in some respects, because of my natural rhythm, make a little more sense out of it than I would have otherwise, because I think the drums were helpful. And started chugging out the guitar. Anyway, get into choir in high school, and I really did respond. Like the choir director was really awesome, and he kind of, in a lot of respects, he recognized I had some sort of natural talent. I had mega enthusiasm. And it was the only thing in my life that was really sparking me. Like high school to me was just like, oh boy, like I didn't do very well. Like if I wasn't psyched, I wasn't going to do it or only to minimum standard. And when I got into the music, and it was made clear that I had support, like my parents really supported me. It took them a while to come around to that, but they did. And because for a while there, it was like, baseball? You're not going to play, when I was a little kid, all I wanted to do was play baseball. So anyway, through that experience, and reassurance from, my high school choir director was like, okay, here, make a deal with him. Like during summertime, he goes and takes a college level music theory course and see if he can hang, like see what he, and we made a deal. And so I went during the summer between my, I guess it was between my sophomore and my junior year, or maybe it was my junior and my senior year. I took a music theory class from Jim Knapp up at Cornish College of the Arts in Seattle.
Mhm.
And I just got my mind blown, like completely blown. Like, I got to figure this out.
Wow.
So then I was like and it was really about guitar. But yet I was playing electric guitar. Like, I was playing Grateful Dead music and Stones music and Hendrix and Cream and whatnot, like in the garage with my pals. So
Cool. But what I can't think of 1,000 podcasts that I've listened to that choir. That's really unusual. I mean,
yeah.
To set a fire in a teenage boy about music, the choir thing. Wow, that teacher must have been phenomenal.
He was awesome, Jim Taylor. Yeah, and he was, I mean, we won choir competitions. Like,
what's a choir competition?
Well, they have like the county, the state competitions and whatever, and the high school thing, and you go and you tour around and do these things. Like, he was really good at getting the most out of people. He was a really good musician. And yeah, it was like, that was an incredible experience. And then we also did the I tried out my junior year, didn't make it into the jazz. There was like a jazz choir, the jazz choir was like, I mean,
that'd be
I wanted to play guitar as much as anything. And so I was in stage band on the one hand, and then I was also in choir, and then jazz choir my senior year. And yeah, I mean, I took theory classes and just tried to like get better. And that really got me into jazz. Like, I was like, okay, the rock and roll music that I was playing was all about group improvisation. And the root of that is jazz, to me, to my way of thinking. And so I wanted to go to follow the root, so I went, I took some guitar lessons from a guy, Max Block, who's just spoke to a few months back. He's still up in Seattle. And, I got really introduced to like chord melody guitar, Wes Montgomery, Joe Pass, Eddie Lang, some of the, George Barnes,
So you still have your varsity choir robe?
No, no, that was it was a good experience. I was asked to sing, he really pushed me to sing as high as I could. So and taught me the basics of singing, enough so all these years, fortunately, haven't hurt myself. Oops. Sorry. Hey,
at the door. Somebody's at the door.
Hey, it's okay. Haven't gotten gotten hurt or anything. So that was all a good experience. And that paved the way. Anyway, then I just kind of kept at it. And at some point there, I was still in high school. I was like, if I'm going to school and, operating out there in the world, it was one of those situations where it's like, well, I had a good chance of doing okay and getting into music school. So, and it was really what I was mainly interested in. And if I didn't go for it, that would be something I might miss later on. So that was one of those crossroads in life, an early one for me, which was like, just go for it.
So what were you playing back then? What was your kind of dream rig at that point in time?
Well, I was an electric guitar player. I started out, and I didn't really even broach the acoustic instrument until 1990-ish, So this would have been 1980, 81. I was, so I'd have been 10 years in before I got an acoustic. I was playing all manner. I started going through guitars like cordwood. Like, I didn't know what I was looking for. You want to get the thing that Jerry Garcia's playing, but nobody's getting that. Which brings it to the whole, the whole thing about like, well, what is it you're actually looking for? Do you even know? You know?
Did anybody at a guitar store ever say that to you?
Well, I would think,
Oh.
I mean,
Guitar store. I thought he was talking about life.
Yeah.
well, that too. Yeah, I mean, the guitar store is like what that was such an activity we would do back then, like on the weekend, me and my bass playing best friend, hey, let's go to Guitars Etc. in Seattle,
Yeah.
You just go bum around and look at gear and think, well, what would work? What would be cool? I mean, I don't know. The first electric guitar I had was, when I switched from playing drums for real, it was like the neighbor friend down the street gave me this Lyle hollow body, like a 335 with one of those Lyle weird Bigsby's on it.
The flat bar.
Pretty cheap guitar, but that was my entree. It was like playing it looked like we were playing Creedence. Were we really playing it right? I don't know.
It's funny talking about, hanging out with your friends in high school and going to guitar stores and such, because I have an old high school friend, and from time to time it's like, oh man, do you remember that 335 we saw down at Leo's back in
Right? Totally. So many vivid memories of that.
Yeah.
But one thing that ended up being a guitar that I still have from that period, was right as I was graduating from high school, my mom lent me some money to get this black Strat that was made by Philip Kubicki. And Philip Kubicki was a guy that worked at Fender. And the neck on this thing, it's like an early 60s, with the small headstock, and it's made out of basswood, so it's really light. Anyway, great guitar. I still have it. Like, I played that for years. It's hardtail Strat copy.
Wow. Any from that period that you regret not still having?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things I wish I still had. Yeah. There was an L5 back there that if I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, just about what I would have done with it. I had unreasonable expectation of that guitar. And there was also an ES 175 that I ended up selling to a student, which felt really good. And then I was talking to him about buying it back from him. And then the conversation went dark and that guitar got sold. So I was bummed.
I think they do come back. I've had 2 guitars come back in the past 4 months that I never thought I would ever see again.
Wow.
And one of them, I walked into a music store and it was hanging on the wall. I mean, I went,
that's kind of mind-blowing.
It was really mind-blowing. I mean, I just looked at it. There was a nick in the nut, and I knew, I knew this guitar, and why I ever sold it, I have no idea. And I just walked in and looked up on the wall, and there it is. And I'm like looking at the guy, and I said, "Where'd you get this?" Because it had been a year and a half since I sold it. I mean, I had no idea. And the other one, I had a road guitar for about 10 years that was a Gruen Hohner.
Right.
In the 90s, Gruen went with Homer and designed these things. And I kind of lost track of where it was, like 8-10 years ago.
Right.
And when we were talking before he came on, I just took Richard down to Southern California. The guy I had lunch with shows up with this guitar. I had left it at his house like 8 years ago. And he shows up and he says, "Here's your guitar back."
Nice.
It's like, yeah, I love
Bonus.
this thing. I loved this thing, small jumbo. great neck. I love this thing. What's the matter here? Why did I leave this down there? I don't know.
So what was your first, acoustic guitar that you got into, that, or what motivated you to pick up an acoustic guitar and go that route?
Well, actually I was, playing nothing but rock and roll, and I started finding myself in the position to play like other gigs, but kind of more scaled down gigs, acoustic gigs. Like it would be make way more sense. I don't know. My ear, I was just kind of like, I was feeling a little bit like I'm here to master this instrument, and if I feel like I'm leaving something out if I'm not checking into acoustic world. I mean, I was in my early 20s. I was just kind of getting going, and I was thinking like I'd always been attracted to, good songwriter, folk rock, folk country, blues, bluegrass music, musics that had acoustic elements. So anyway, I kind of, and I think I was right. Like before I played acoustic, like I feel like I was pretty limited. Like since playing acoustic, my electric playing is expanded. There are things that you learn from the acoustic instrument that transfer really well to any form of the guitar, and some on the electric that don't. So anyway, I mean, honestly, so there was like both artistic motivation, and then there was also like an actual opportunity motivation. I had been in a band, like in one kind of rock and roll band. It was a little bit of a, situation where it was like, is it going to be all or nothing with this, or what am I doing here? Is this all or nothing, gonna put all my bricks here? Or it was getting to be time to split off and kind of keep cultivating all the possibilities. And so that was kind of it. And what did I end up doing? I think the first one I got a Takamine, like a D18 or something. Worked out on a couple Yorma versions of, turned out to be Mississippi John Hurt tune, and then I went, oh wait, I should listen to Mississippi John Hurt. So I listened to Mississippi John Hurt, and then like, and Reverend Gary Davis, same thing, like, oh, what the, then it was on. Then it was like, okay, now it's on. So it was country blues for a while. Like I wanted to learn how to finger pick. I was hanging out with a guy up in Seattle, Jim Page, who's a wonderful singer-songwriter. He's just amazing. He's been going on at Pike Place Market there. He was like infamous for busking at Pike Place. But anyway, he's an incredible fingerstyle guitar player. So I was motivated by him, to kind of hanging out with a crowd up there, kind of pursuing that. And then, boy, a few guitars went by. Like there was a moment of a Santa Cruz that went away. There was a moment of a couple different Martins. I finally landed on a D21, like a 50s era D21, but I never got comfortable with the neck. And that was sort of the moment where I was like, maybe I need to rethink this, because this is a great guitar. Like it sounded awesome. I wasn't super comfortable with it. I also wasn't super comfortable with like having such an expensive, irreplaceable instrument. Like I was thinking like, maybe I should be thinking about something that's a little, it's not like a historical loss if something happens. Like with an old, with something from the 50s or something. And that was like an interesting challenge, like find a guitar that you still want to play like that. And, so anyway, that's kind of what started the whole search, which landed me at Santa Cruz, with a Santa Cruz to begin with. And yeah.
Nice.
I see you have
Richard knocked me down. I'm feeling bad that he's talking about historical instruments from the 1950s, because that just doesn't sound that old to me.
Well, right. I think that I had it in, I think I had a sense like maybe that was a little, I'm not sure now if I'd feel the same way, but honestly, except it was like, I'm not a collector so much. Like I have guitars around that I use. I really want guitars that I'm going to use. I feel bad if there are instruments lying around. So, and I feel so fortunate in my life that I've been able to do this at all. I have to say, like, one thing has continued to lead to another, but the fact that I'm even like worrying about what guitar I'm going to play is, kind of a joke, and I'm really grateful for it.
I think we've all been blessed by music in that way. What it's done for us is, just giving us an opening into that. I was watching something on YouTube of you, and I was watching you fingerpick, and I was listening to what I was hearing, and I was watching you fingerpick, and I was going, how does he do that? Because it sounds like a flat pick to me. I mean, I wish I could remember the piece I've been watching, but how'd you develop that fingerpick flat pick? Is that the Garcia influence of the way he played, or?
Well,
Unique.
I don't know exactly what part you're talking about, but I definitely employ a few different strategies. And, hybrid picking is one of them, when you've got the flat pick, but you're also using these fingers. That happens. Straight finger picking. One thing that's been interesting, and honestly, it's like, yeah, it's an interesting question because everything to me is in such flux and evolution right now. I've been onto a thing. The last several years, I've gone in and out of like kind of working on these Jerry Reed tunes. And the thing I notice about Jerry is like, he sort of has a lot of stuff it's already rigged up for hybrid picking, because he mostly will, like, he'll curl this thing up and he doesn't use it. He mostly picks here and mostly these guys. And that's where the melody strings are. So then that makes it easy. Then when you just flip over to hybrid, you're not adding or subtracting anything. It's already there. But it's weird, that claw thing that they the claw. So I thought that was interesting. Garcia, of course, he had this going on because of his finger.
Yeah.
So that's another, that's another one though, where the melody note, it's more the melody note. The melody note's really up here, I've found. So anyway, I've been kind of switching over to that. And on the flat pick side, like now I'm into this, like trying to get I'm trying to sort of navigate the intersection of bluegrass, like the down pick, the G run, what do they call it? What is it? The rest stop. And basically, like, I think that there's like there's an intersection of like good downstroke oriented bluegrass rhythm guitar playing and the feel of that as you're passing through the strings, and gypsy picking, quote gypsy picking. I don't know, the thing where every time you change a string, it's a downstroke, right? So you're down, up, but as soon as you change a string, you recalibrate to down. And the same thing in both directions. So it becomes like when you're going. So anyway, I'm in that world. Like at this point, it's all a mess. I feel like I took the engine apart and it's all over the garage floor. I have no idea what I'm doing.
I like that analogy. That's pretty good.
Part of it was I spent a couple of months in the pandemic, like early on, I was so disoriented and I was just like, and I was kind of messing around, like trying to play chord melody guitar, like learn get back into some standards, like learn Autumn Leaves in a new key and just try to actually remember how it goes. I don't know, play over changes. And I started just playing with my thumb. And then I start, go back to Wes, and you're listening to Wes, and you're like, he's doing that with just his thumb. And you know what? He hardly ever uses his pinky on his left hand.
Yeah.
And you watch the Manouche guys and gals, they play a lot with just those strong fingers, those first three fingers, and just little things noticing. It's like, okay, so all those downstrokes playing with the thumb and trying to get relaxed and get a tone and all of it. Like, guess what? Pick up the flat pick, boom, transferable. All that pick direction stuff. Like, you just forced yourself to organize things in a way that would work with the fat direction happening. You know what I mean? Mostly, we're all, it's like, Wes had an up thing. I'm not sure what that's about yet, but you know what I mean? It's like, so I'm in a place now, and I think it's just where everything's been sort of exploded, and I'm open to possibilities. I want to see if I can hear more stuff and actually play it.
Well, during the pandemic, you've put out a number of YouTube videos,
Yes.
which, have been quite enjoyable. In fact, I think I noticed you have at least 3 Santa Cruzes you use in those videos. A beautiful Brosman Pro, as well as your guitar.
Yes.
So you're obviously out there doing some stuff while all this is happening. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah. Well, in the immediate, rush of what is going on here, it became pretty apparent to me that, people are going online and they're watching shows, and this is a good thing for folks. Like, actually, this is amazing that this is happening because we're able to get together in this virtual way, and people are doing that. And so I was like, okay. And we were, it's like, okay, get on going. Did a bunch of live streams. It was a little bit like scrambly, like desperation, in a way. If you recall that time, nobody really knew what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And no one was really trusting everything.
Anything.
Yeah, anything. And
Anything.
Anything at that time, especially because of all the other pressures that have been going on. And anyway, so found doing a regular live stream on my friend who's got a Facebook page, which is called Deadheadland, which was, it's like a community page that people all across the country, he's been doing this sort of, he's been printing up t-shirts in the parking lot and being like kind of a guy who documents shows, because he goes to a lot of shows for years, decades, even 20 years now. He'll go to a show with his camera and get a couple tunes, before at Terrapin or whatever, or maybe the whole night, and then he'll put it up on his website. Well, then it became live streaming. You could just do that. So he's been doing that forever. Like, I know the guy, every time I'm playing at Terrapin, when I'd go down there to Terrapin Crossroads, Brian would be there documenting anything, related to what was happening. Been doing a live stream and keeping it going every Monday at 4:20 Pacific time on the Deadheadland Facebook page and on mine. And it's been really, that's been part of what's been kind of holding my world together, like have something musical to work toward every week. And I remember in the beginning of this all just thinking, oh my God, really, we've been reduced to this. This is really weird. This is super weird. Like this, I'm not built for this. You know what I mean? That kind of narrative going through my mind. It was just such a bummer, you know? But then I started to realize, wait, this is actually meaningful. I'm getting energy here. And people, you know, were very generous and like, they're not going out to see shows, but they're popping a few bucks in the tip jar. And it was like, this seems like a meaningful thing. And it's hitting on all the levels. So let's keep it going. And then I fell into this, you know, I was like, well, it was pandemic and I was coming off Terrapin hot, you know, like, which was, you know, I go down there for a week every month and I don't repeat a song, you know, and I play every day and sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, wow. You know, we do sets. So I fell into this whole thing, which was doing no repeat covers. So I played 2 or 3 or 4 of my own songs on a set, rotate those through, but also just keep expanding this universe of cover songs that I'm, you know, interested in, aware of, able to, or have played. And so that became this really interesting repertoire deep dive. And I just stopped the no repeat cover thing at 666 tunes. And, but I'm still going. We're up to 673. I mean, it's not like, that's not the prime mover now. I'm just trying to like put a show together that makes sense every week.
I got to say that was the one feeling I've always had about you is, you know, rather than the question of if you were stuck on a deserted island, what album would you take? It would be like, if I were stuck on the deserted island, I'd want to have Scott Law there.
Thanks, Tad. Right on. It feels like that. It feels like, you know, there's so much. I just love music, you know, and I see the common thread in so much of it. And, you know, so it's like, and I'm just eager to learn and to, you know, master the instrument and hear and be able to play what I hear, you know, that's just always been the driving force. And I don't know, just kind of follow, you know, as things unfold, I guess.
Well, yeah, so much of what you play is just so enjoyable and approachable. You know, we have done podcasts with a number of guitarists that really blow you away with their technical proficiency and their expertise in certain areas or whatever else. But you seem to just cover everything and do it in a way that it's just enjoyable to listen to. And like I said, you know, on a desert island, it would be awesome.
Well, thanks for that. That's a really nice thing that you said. I appreciate that.
Well, I think we need to spend a little bit of time talking about your signature guitar, how it got developed and what it's all about, and you know where you're coming from in this design.
Okay. Well, you did mention that there's you've caught at least 3 Santa Cruz guitars, and the first one that I wound up with was a custom build based off of some experiences that I had with other instruments that I had, you know, other Santa Cruz instruments that I had played. And that was a rosewood guitar. And Richard just like, you know, that experience was sort of what bonded us, I think, as friends and kindred spirits of guitar talk, because talking with Richard about guitars is about the most fun thing you could do.
This is the point of this podcast.
and so, you know, that was a whole development of idea and concept and everything. And then this guitar comes along and it just completely blows me away. And what really blew me away was like everything we asked of that design to happen is what was executed. And that to me was remarkable. like to the point of exactitude. Not even, I mean, physically, yes, because we all know that these instruments look so perfect, you want to just eat them. But, but it was like the concepts that we had been talking about sonically and everything. So a couple of years goes by, a situation where I'm playing, in a playing situation that makes me think, you know what? I see where having a complementary mahogany version of a dreadnought would be really handy, because sometimes the little bit of fatness you want in the mix of the balance of things, and sometimes you want a little bit of the speed, the transient speed of mahogany, and a little less of the low stuff. Still want the punch, but I was like, what could we do here? I wonder if we could do something, Richard. and anyway, so then that became a very exacting conversation, which turned into he was just like, he had a response for what that recipe might look like. Even in the initial conversation, when I was asking him for, look, I need something that's like a D18 kind of, that's sort of the platform foundation we're going for, but a little rounder up top, a little more balanced overall, like, needs to be able to play bona fide, as bona fide as I can get it in a bluegrass context, but also I want to be able to, kind of be rangy on it, do whatever. I play everything, right? So he immediately had the idea about it, and the ideas about the build that kind of make it what it is. And the thing is we were just talking about a guitar. We were making a guitar for me, and we made a guitar for me, and again the same thing happened, where it was like, basically everything that we talked about occurred, and even in this, in the sound spectrum, and these are new guitars, man. It was like right out of the bucket. It was like, whoa, like really good. So anyway, I played that guitar a lot, and over the next 18 months or so, I pretty much chewed through the frets. And so I brought them back to the factory. I was down there, and as the story goes, it was like, I think the next NAMM or something, or it was some period of time after that, where, those guys were like, this is actually kind of a hit in guitar, and asked me if I'd be interested in sort of, if we put that forward as a signature model, which I was completely blown away by. And yeah, so yeah.
Wow.
The guitar itself, what makes it, what helps it accomplish those things, it's a mahogany guitar, and but as I understand it, the bracing is kind of a hybrid bracing. It's placed sort of in between the extremes, and it's the guitar at the top, because of the way the bracing is fashioned and placed, and it's all hide glue and red spruce bracing and all that, it's really stiff in the middle, but really loose on the edge. So it's like a speaker, like, the top of guitar is a speaker. So you can imagine like all the different ways that you might balance out those extremes, how soft it is in the middle versus the outside. So that's a lot of what's going on with it. And it's great. It's loud. It's a very loud, punchy guitar that it never gets too hashy in the high end, and the low end is clear. It's substantial, but it's clear. It's not a boomer like a Rosewood type.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then you also have the Brosman, I know, because I saw that in the videos. What else? What else do you have there that floats your boat?
I mean, I actually have one other Santa Cruz guitar, a little O29, which is one of the early ones, which is super fun for finger picking and like country blues and stuff. I really like it for that. Um, and it has a friend of mine. There's a fella I met in Italy in Milano. Um, uh, Max Di Bernardi, and he's an amazing fingerstyle player. Like, been playing guitar since he was born, pretty much, and American styles. And anyway, he hit me to a thing which was put a 14 on the high string. Like I use 12s on that guitar, but I put a 14 on the high E, and it really makes it punchy. It's like playing those melodies, when you're playing like country blues stuff. So that's a fun one. It's got a nice V in the neck.
Nice, nice.
A few other guitars kicking around, but that's
I remember the first time I think I met you was the 35th party at that winery, and it was you.
Oh yeah.
And it was you and Bill Nershi.
Yeah.
And they had brought up, you'd been there like 2 days or something like that. And they had brought up about 15 guitars from the factory. And they were all sitting in this room. And I remember that I don't think you had been to bed. I think you guys had been up just playing because you were just grabbing a guitar, and they had glued Bill's signature guitar neck that morning or something like that, and Richard brought it up with him that day, but I just remember you being in this room with all these instruments going, let's try that one,
yeah,
let's play that one now.
That's how I ended up with that O29.
Yeah.
I was like, that was the one we were playing. I was like, you know what, this is a groovy guitar.
Yeah, it was.
There were a lot of groovy guitars there. Like, yeah, for sure. That was a really interesting experience to be able to, you really can think about how guitars blend with each other, like voices. And that was really, that was kind of my part of it, is sort of the impetus for having both choices, the rosewood and the mahogany. Because I mean, we would try some guitars and it was like, okay, that's cool. But then you try others and the combination is like, oh, that's like, that's working.
Yeah, it was obvious. It was obvious that night as you guys, and that afternoon as you were rehearsing for the evening and stuff like that. It was really obvious that. And now that I look back on that, you guys were intertwining what you were playing. I'm not blowing this up your skirt, but this Julian Lage, Chris Etheridge thing that's happening right now, I think they picked it up from you guys, because you guys were on a whole nother planet with just your listening to each other and finding the space,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean that's the goal, finding the space, I guess, and listening to each other. And I mean that to me is well, especially when you're in a small, like a duo situation where you can really, like, it's utterly, like, you have to do that. Like, you really have to get the weave going, or you really, but in all contexts, I mean, it's really how I see music, is and I think, a lot of the scene of folks that have grown up around, well, jazz music and Grateful Dead music, blues music, bluegrass music. I mean, everybody has a role and a place, and finding that place in the music that, there's a spectrum of frequencies. If too many people occupy the same frequency, then things thin out. But when you can get complementary thing going, everything gets more depth and movement, and it's like water. I really see music in that way, like water in the river, run the river, or when you're out watching the tide.
Nice, nice. Well, I got to ask, now that you've got the engine broke down and scattered across the garage floor, what are you hoping you're going to be able to put together there? What are you going to be driving this next year or so?
Well, I hope to be doing more work with my buddy Ross James, and we have our guitar band Cosmic Twang, which is our it is what it sounds like, and it's pretty full on rock and roll experience with country undertones and psychedelic overtones. And I'll bet you there'll be some playing with Nikki Bloom. And the three of us have been working together a lot over the last few years. So those are sort of priorities, and of course, any plan that's possible that comes up down at Terrapin Crossroads and with Phil Lesh, and that's just been such an extraordinary situation for me over the last 6 or 7 years. Well, with this last year being a little weird. And then I'm just continuing to kind of work on my, I'm going to do my live stream. You can tune in every Monday at 4:20 on my Facebook page, Scott Law Music, or a Facebook page called Dead Headland. Yeah. And in the meantime, I'm just working on tunes, and I'll be leading some, I've got a few outdoor, open air, safe gigs that are kind of coming together in the summertime. And I'll be out there leading the lineup a little bit, both acoustic and electric, I imagine, and doing some of my stuff and doing just a lot of the repertoire that we all love.
Excellent. So is there, well, I was gonna say, have you heard anything about when Terrapin might be able to open, or when they might be able to start letting people back in or anything?
Well, they just started last week. I think a few outdoor pod shows have happened. I think Midnight North played there this weekend as well, which is Graham's band, Graham Lesh, Phil's son, and they're wonderful. Check them out. And I think, like as with everything, it's just things are just they're cautiously coming online. I'm not speaking for them, but I'm just imagining, things are gonna slowly now start to get better, and hopefully the data. Me personally, like as we're watching all this, we're in a really interesting time right now, right? We're in between worlds.
Yeah, we are.
And it's like, this is, we're still watching this all unfold. So I think we're going to have a better time this summer than we had last summer, though. I think that's
shouldn't be hard.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
What's that Phil Lesh experience like for you? It's got to be completely surreal. And yet you have to be completely present.
It's weird. I mean, when I stop and think about it, it's way weirder than when we're just rolling. I mean, music is sort of the natural habitat for us all. So, it was really interesting to be around Terrapin during 2015, during Fare Thee Well, during the 50th anniversary, and to be working. I mean, I have never physically worked harder in my life in music. Like, I was playing so much, and it just all was flashing by. But it was really the whole thing, like, just because of the dedication to the music and to the audience, and the experiences that we have been able as musicians to have, you know, it's like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, there's no, I still, you know, the last year I've, you know, been sitting here at home most of the time. And I just think, did that really happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's got to be there is something about being around real celebrity like that every once in a while you just kind of look at yourself and go, how is this possible? I mean, I do. You know, there's just times I'm around somebody and I just go, really?
Well,
Really?
it's interesting, you know. I mean, all of that is really interesting because, you know, there's a lot of you can't think about yourself. Like, I just had to, you know, you just have to think about the music and go. And there's a reason that you wind up in certain places.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You know, for whatever, you know, and the interesting thing too is, like, I mean, I was steeped in this music and in the flow of that music. Like, that's how I learned to play. And, you know, I mean, I really, it's like, for me, Jerry Garcia was a conduit. He was sort of the headwaters of so much, like, that subsequently I've studied, you know, and really gotten into, right? But that phrasing and that tone on electric guitar, like, that was it, man. And I had this really weird, I don't know if you know about this scenario where I had the opportunity to play with Phil in 2005, to play Garcia's Wolf guitar.
Mm-hmm.
The Garcia's guitar named Wolf. That was an early Alembic Duggar when, and it was in that moment that I was like playing with him, playing Eyes of the World, you know, and I was like, oh my God, it totally makes sense why Garcia plays the way he does, because this is the way this guy plays. It was so weird. It just like, it was just like, you know, oh, these guys grew up playing together, you know, because things that I would hear to play, or my interpretation of the phrasing or whatever, felt so familiar with Phil there. And it was really an interesting experience.
Wow.
So I don't know. I just, like, that music feels really second nature to me. And so I'm just glad I've got a chance to be around to do it. I mean, Terrapin Crossroads for me wasn't all Grateful Dead music. It was that, and it was a crash course in getting sharp on that book, as sharp as I could in a short amount of time. And you realize, like, that music's deep. It's not. It sounds like it sounds simpler than it is. Like, there are details that must be, you know, taken care of, and but also it's such a listening thing, man. It's like, just, you're listening and finding your spot in the weave, you know, and that's what we all, like, that's what I grew up, and that's what we learned from those guys, and they were learning it from everything that they were listening to.
Yeah.
So that's how the music, you know, the music keeps growing.
Yeah.
I am going to step out and recommend a couple of books. Do you know about The Inner Game of Tennis?
Yes.
Okay. Subsequently, The Inner Game of Music.
The
Inner Game of Tennis is better. If you know about The Inner Game of Tennis, I would highly recommend that anybody watching or listening read Timothy Galloway's Inner Game of Tennis, because it will translate to your music.
Cool.
In such a way of understanding that it's exactly what you've been talking about, of just being there and just being a part and being in that weave and being in that moment. And you're not telling your hand, you're not telling your hand to play this riff. Your hand is playing this riff. And when you think about it, you can't do it. But you already know exactly, you know, what to do there. So did we lose me? Did we lose me? I'm
For a
sorry.
second.
Lost you just for a second there.
Okay.
I think
All right. Well, we'll put a link for that in the thing as well,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
at least a mention of it.
Yeah, I recommend it highly, and it's exactly what you've been talking about today.
Yeah, that sounds like it. I do. I think I read the Inner Game of Tennis. There was isn't there a skiing one?
There's 3 books.
Maybe it was the skiing one that I read way back. But yeah, I mean, all of that stuff, like the listening and I mean the finding your space in the music and finding your space in the sonic spectrum. I mean, the things we learn from watching the great guitar players that work together. It's like everything from know when to play power chords together, to know when to stay out of each other's way rhythmically or in terms of range, or, tone, like making sure that you're getting your tones working together. And, like we're talking about with acoustic guitars, that can be, instrument to instrument or pick or whatever, but also with electric guitars, and especially playing in like, these kinds of contexts, and playing different music. I mean, playing at Terrapin Crossroads and like what I've been doing with this sort of survey of all this music, like songs that I've run across or sang or played or appreciated and thought would be fun to put in the appreciation pile. Like playing that with a rotation of about 40 musicians, 40 or 50 musicians, it was like just an extraordinary run of time that I got to do that. And for the audiences going there, and, children could come to the bar. I mean, when I was a kid, I couldn't see rock and roll music, with my parents.
Yeah.
But like at Terrapin, you could do that. So we'll see how it all goes when things open back up. I'm looking forward to the whole world being a better place.
Yeah,
like
I believe
getting ourselves back to playing some music.
I believe that we will see a brighter side on the other side. It will be a better day. Scott, you've been unbelievably gracious with your time.
Yes, thank you so much. That's been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. It's an honor, and We'll
be in touch about links, and we'll post all this stuff up on where it's at, and get on Facebook at 4:20 on Monday afternoon, and throw a little toward the tip jar, and
all right. So you guys might end up getting me on Facebook.
We'll get you there. We'll get you there, Ted. So have a fantastic afternoon, Scott.
Thank you. You guys as well. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks very much. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or santacruzguitarplayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.